Hey there, and welcome to another episode of Teaching Online with Jeff. In this episode, I want to talk a little bit about the differences between recording audio and video when you're recording instructional material, and when it makes sense to record one over the other. Now, I want to start out by saying that most online teachers, when they start, want everything to be video. Video feels more engaging, you get to see the visuals that are on screen, you get to see the person who's actually talking. It seems like a really attractive way to go. The problem with creating video is that it's a much more intensive process than creating audio. Not only are there more factors that you have to think about, what's on screen if it's a talking head, what are the things that you're going to be demonstrating, the post-production time, the time after you are recording the video and where you're editing it, is much more intensive if you want to layer in everything. One measure that I've heard of as a way to think about it is that every minute of video takes about an hour of post-production and editing to get to a good state. And that's a pretty conservative estimate in terms of time. It could be anything closer to 2 to 3 hours. So you talk about a 10-minute video, you're most likely going to need to put in 10 hours at least to have it ready to go. That just takes a lot of time. Audio, on the other hand, you can set up your phone, you can set up a microphone, you can record something really fast, and typically the editing does not take as long. For these podcast episodes that I'm doing, it takes some time. A 10-minute recording, probably takes me 30 to 40 minutes to actually get down, and then it probably takes me another 30 to 40 minutes to actually get it edited. But if that was a video, if I was talking about a 10-minute video that I was doing for these, it would take much, much longer. So it seems really tempting to want to do everything as video, but there are other reasons why you may not want everything to be video either. Most people aren't really engaged by just talking heads. Typically, if you're going to do video, there is usually some other element that people are going to want to see. If you're doing a math problem, people are going to want to see you write it out. If you are talking about something in history, you may want to have pictures that come up, or there may be clips of, documentaries or movies that you may want to put in there. Whatever it is with video, if it's just you as a talking head, where there's not a whole lot else going on, it's not going to make for a really engaging video. For audio, while it's still better to have something more going on than just a single person talking, you can get away with that. And even if you want to put in something like music, it's much easier to incorporate those types of things. It doesn't take as much time to edit those things together. Another big difference between video and audio is that it takes a lot more effort for a user to actually watch a video. You have to sit down, you have to be focused on the screen, because you typically want to see what's actually happening. And again, if it's just a talking head, you may think, oh, that's going to lead to more engagement. More likely what's going to happen is that people are just going to fall off from watching the video, even thinking about your students. Whereas with audio, you can do that while you're washing dishes, while you're going for a walk, while you're exercising, while you're driving. There's typically more places that you can engage with audio. Another difference is that in general, your students are more likely to listen to an audio recording that's longer than a video recording. Because it takes more effort to watch a video, as odd as that may sound to put it that way, you actually have to sit down. You can't really be focused on anything else if it's instruction, which means the amount of time that you're going to actually be able to focus on that video is going to be shorter. And again, because you can listen to audio in more places, it's much more likely that you're also going to get longer engagement on audio recordings that you do. So the question is, when do you do one over the other? Because you may be walking away from this thinking, oh, Jeff's saying don't do video at all. And that's not the case. There are really good strategic points when it makes sense to put in the effort to do video. But what I would say is you are probably going to be able to get away with doing audio much more often than video, and it's going to work just as well, if not better. So this is the general rule of thumb that I go with. If your instructional content has a social component to it, or if it is showing something that needs to be seen and interacted with visually, make videos. For social components, this is thinking about introduction videos, Videos that may have more sensitive material where it's important to have students see your face and see your body language to see how you're communicating that way. That's what I mean by videos that have a social component to it. And then obviously things with a visual component would be things where it's actually helpful for your students to see something. So if you're explaining a math problem, being able to write that out is probably going to be a little bit better. If you're doing something related to art, it may be that it's easier to show particular paintings or things like that. Just think about what your content is. If all you're doing is needing to get information across, record that as an audio recording. It's going to do a couple things. One, it's going to keep your students more engaged because it's not going to be them staring at a screen, looking at a talking head, or looking at PowerPoint slides. The other thing is that you are going to be able to get away with longer audio recordings, like we mentioned before, which means you can go into more detail on whatever it is that you're covering. So that's my general recommendation when it comes to recording audio and video. The last thing I'll say about this is that one of the reasons why it's helpful to make your instructional content more portable, and a reason why I think recording in audio is better, is because retention is often based on location cues. What I mean by that is that your memory often is triggered by sensory things. So what you see, what you hear, what you smell, all of those things make it easier for you to recall information. It's why retracing your steps, if you've lost something, is a really helpful thing because it kickstarts your memory by giving you all these cues on where you might have lost an item. When it comes to retaining instruction, the more mental cues that you give your memory about that information, the more likely it is that you're going to retain it. In a few research studies that have been done, it's been shown that when students study in the same room that they take a test in, they're much more likely to score highly on that test and remember the information than people who study in other locations. And while that's a really good test-taking strategy, if your goal is to help your students retain knowledge, then the more places that they can pick up cues for that information, the more likely they're going to retain it. And so that's a reason why audio can be more helpful, is that it's a much more portable form of instruction than video instruction is. So hopefully that's given you some help and some ideas about thinking about when to record video, record audio. That's going to do it for this episode. Thanks so much for joining me. If you like this, please subscribe. Please share this with your friends. Leave a rating if you feel like this has been helpful. In the next few episodes, we're going to focus on some instructional strategies that you can use in online teaching. So I'm looking forward to having you join me. Thanks so much, and I will catch you next time.